Right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pursuit of Relentless podcast. You have your host, Alaina, here. And today I have a fellow Arete Syndicate member with me, Josh Kosnick. And he runs Kairos Coaching and as well the Spartan Leadership podcast. And I am so grateful to have him on the show today because he is one of the greats himself. And as you can tell from his incredible home there. I'm just like oogling. I'm pretty sure that's on my vision board. Literally, that exact staircase style is on my vision board. So thank you for being on the show today. We're excited to hear from you.
Hey, really happy to be here. I love the mission, love the relentless pursuit. I'm happy to pour in as much as possible, have as much impact today as possible for your listeners. Let's rock it.
Awesome. Well, maybe you can start out by telling your story. Have you always been an entrepreneur, or were you in the corporate world before you started in entrepreneurship, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, pretty much always an entrepreneur. I'll say I had a brief stay. I dropped out of college and I was working at Circuit City and Best Buy from high school to college. And because I was good at sales in that respect, they asked me to be a sales manager after I dropped out of college. I was like, oh, you're not doing college anymore? That means you can work full time? Sounds good. Here's an offer to be a sales manager. And at that time, it was like $50,000. I'm 21 years old. And like, sounds good.
Yeah.
So I took that. But as I progressed over the next couple of years, I was kicking everyone's ass. And I was 23 years old. And I see other sales managers getting paid more than I was just because they're older than me. And I was like, wait. I was always taught that if you do better, you get paid more. And I played college athletics. I was a football player. And like, I just come from that sports background. It's like, if you do better, you should earn more. And so I go to ask for a raise and they tell me no. And I just had this moment where I was like, so wait, I can finish like 300th and not, top three. And you guys don't care. I get paid the same amount. And they're like, well, no, you want to continue to strive to be better and blah, blah, whatever they said. But that very week, I got called. So after I got told no, and I'm processing that, I got called from a financial advisor that worked at my father's firm. And he didn't put two and two together that I was his boss's son. And it was an interesting call because he was trying to set me for a meeting. And I was like, did my dad put you up to this? Like, and he had no idea. He had no idea. But anyhow, the long story short, after that call, I sat back in the chair and I was like, I need to be doing that. Like, I need to be working for myself. I need to be pursuing something that I control my income, not having some corporate entity control my income. Mm-hmm. And so at 24 years old, I started my financial advisory practice. I was able to exit that at age 35. I sold that when I was asked to take over a large firm. Bought and took over a large firm. I had 115 advisors, 250 employees total. And 2 years ago, exited that and sold that firm to pursue, kind of my dream of just coaching and getting out of that compliance world that you have to live with and some of the other problems that go along with it.
It's fun.
And now I get to help. I get to help advisors and I get to help entrepreneurs solve problems, not necessarily have to go through them myself. So I really feel like I've hit my sweet spot in my stride in coaching and help people overcome the humps that entrepreneurship throws at us, all those lumps, all those bumps and bruises, and help you get through it a little bit more seamlessly than I had to go through it myself.
Oh, that's incredible. And yeah, it's definitely a different world when you're going from being an employee to an entrepreneur. I remember when I first started in business, it was, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. And then I was like, I have no freaking clue what I'm doing. Like, how am I supposed to, build a team? And how am I supposed to overcome my emotions when I'm used to getting a paycheck every 2 weeks? And now I'm like on 100% commission, or, I'm just trying to make sales because I need to survive. And it was a really hard pill to swallow because I was like, I'm going to crush this. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to make all this money. And then I didn't. And it took me a good solid 2 years of struggling to get my business to the point where I was actually profitable. And now fast forward, I'm 8 years into the business and I still am sitting here going, man, I am this big in the industry. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just starting and I know that there's so much I can learn, but I didn't have a massive team. I hadn't figured out culture or team environment or what it looks like to be able to train people really well when it was in the beginning. And now even still, this last year has been a very challenging year for me. This last month, I haven't told my audience yet, so I'm going to make an announcement, but I did lose the baby again. And it was awful because I thought I was in the clear, and I was just like, okay, we're good. We're going to have this new life. And like, April, I'm going to have a baby. And no, he came in December and he didn't make it. So I was just like in this rut and like struggling and frustrated. And I'm like, man, my business didn't grow the way that I wanted it to. And, I was just in this negative mental feedback loop. And I just had to sit there with myself and go, okay, how is this impacting my team? How is this serving my team if I'm going to sit here and wallow in my sorrows? It's not. It's not going to help me grow. It's not going to help me get to my goals. I'm not going to be this best version of myself if I just sit here and struggle with it. So I picked up, actually I dropped off, let's say. I dropped my husband off at the airport because he still works abroad. And then I came to my office and I put on Ed's podcast. And I was just like, okay, I got to get my mentality back in line, right? Because I'm sure you are going to talk about it, but how our emotions impact our team and how our own personal development is going to impact our team in the long run is so important. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to start fresh. I got my office organized. I set it all up nicely. And I'm like, okay, I got like my little trophies and stuff like that. I'm like, all right, I'm a winner. And I just had that mentality of what's next instead of sitting there and wallowing in my pain, right? Yes, feel your pain, go through that. But what I've been craving lately is exercise and like just giving back to the community and stuff like that. So anyways, that's my story.
Well, no, it's good that you got to get that out there to the people that listen to you, especially if you've been talking about your pregnancy journey and the past losses and stuff like that with them. Like, it's important that they know that. And I want to recognize you, like, that is freaking hard. And so there's times where your team, like there's these life instances. It's like whether a team member, loses a spouse or a loved one, or their child is diagnosed with cancer, or like in your instance, you lose a baby. Like, those are those holy shit moments where it's like people rally around you. Like those are life things that we're all going to face that are super hard. And yes, how you show up for your team matters on a day-to-day basis. But these are these inflection points where you're like, people will rally around you and give you some grace because they can't imagine. Like I told you, my firstborn was born 5 weeks early, but thank God she was healthy. We have all the prenatal nurses in the room and the doctor saying, hey, we're going to prep you for a 4-pound baby and she might be in the NICU. All this, and like you're going through all this mental, because they're trying to prep you. But like, these are these instances where like, I can't imagine what you've gone through. And at the same time, want to be there for you. And then, so I got to imagine the team and the people that care about you feel that same way. So they're going to give you that grace. I think where a lot of leaders screw up is they allow the little shit to affect their energy.
Yeah.
Everyone can understand, even if they can't fully understand what you're going through, they can understand that it's a traumatic life event and they can give you grace. When you're a leader and you're letting, like in your world, like a policy lapse, or a negative customer experience or something like that, just totally dog the energy of the office or environment, that's where leaders screw up. And they bring down the energy of the team. Is like, no, you got to be the lighthouse in the calm and the storm.
Yeah.
And in this big instance, as you go through this, and because you're still going through it, you're not through it. Like, you're still processing those feelings. You're still grasping the fact that you lost this baby when you thought you were in the clear. And as you go through and as you get back into exercise and you get back into production and you get back into the office and you get back to giving back to them and pouring into them, they're like, I know she's going through shit mentally and emotionally, and she's still giving this to me. Man, I will run through a wall for that woman.
And they've been so great. They're like, so 2 days ago, I decided to donate my hair to charity. So this is my first like new do video. And I was just like so proud of my team to be like, okay, what else can we do? Because my word of the year is contribution. So I was talking to them on our Saturday meeting and I was like, hey guys, what do you guys want to do as a base shop, like as a team, to give back to your communities? Because we're all in different places now. I'm on Vancouver Island. Most of my team's in Fort McMurray. I've got some in Saskatchewan. Like we're kind of all spread out. And I'm like, so I'm trying to help them take initiative in their communities and go, okay, can we get into the schools? Can we do events that are going to help people dream a little bigger or like focus on their goals and stuff like that? Because it's just so frustrating when I sit down with someone and you were in the financial industry as well. So it makes me so frustrated to just have these people coming into my office that have no hope for their future. And they're sitting there going, I don't know if you can help me, but I'm struggling, or like, I'm doing okay, but I wish I could be doing better. And they just want to be comfortable, you know? And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, I've talked about it a couple times on the podcast, but the word comfort really scares me because I'm like, I don't want to be comfortable. I want to be like accelerating. I just want to be able to give back so much more. And I know that if I win in business and I'm able to do stuff like this, like I don't monetize on the podcast. It costs me money to run this, but I know that I'm going to be able to make an impact in one person's life, you know? Yeah. So that's why I love doing this. But then I also get opportunities to interview people like yourself who are 10 steps ahead of me and see how I can learn and grow and develop myself, but also have my team listen in and be like, okay, let's take some advice from people who are more successful, right? So I love that you said you found your stride in coaching, because there's something beautiful about giving back once you have learned those lessons. Even if it's like, here's some book suggestions, or here's a podcast that really helped me, or maybe check out this person, you know? So I think that when you're in those moments in the beginning of your business and you're just trying to figure it out, you got to ask for leadership and coaching and a little bit of help. If that's what you say, like investing in your business and stuff is so important, because you're going to learn what you're capable of, especially in those moments when you need to take a step back and go, okay, what can I do to reevaluate where we're going? Or like, how can we inspire our teams, right?
Yeah, and you got to make sure that you're pouring from a full cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. So that's why it's so important for all of us to heal from our traumas and heal from certain instances, and blocking time to work through that stuff. I think that's the biggest thing for entrepreneurs is we don't block the time. I just gave this advice to someone, actually to a group that I coach earlier this week. We went through the book 10X is Greater Than 2X by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And in there, they talk about these 150 days of, and they're like, everyone's kind of cross-eyed, like, I can't see taking 150 days off to vision and reflect and stuff. I'm like, most people can't, because you haven't even taken one day off yet to vision and reflect and recuperate and all that stuff. So here's where you start. You take an hour and you block it each week. And then for me, it was Friday morning at 10 a.m. So when I was an advisor and when I was running the firm, I've fallen away from that now because I built in some other practices. But when I was an advisor and running the firm, Friday morning at 10 a.m. was my vision time. And here's what's cool about it is during the week as a type A entrepreneur or, alpha or whatever, hard charger, you're going to have these ideas come up. And then you're going to be like, shit, well, I got to get into this meeting or I got to do this. And you don't have time to actually process. Or you have an experience that you have an emotional reaction to that you want to work through and process that, but you don't necessarily have time. But when you block it in your calendar, you can go immediately, oh, but I set aside time to process this then, or I set aside time to actually go through this then. So you then use your phone in your notes section and you like just a to-do list or to go through list on Friday morning. I'm going to work through this thought or this emotion or this experience. And now you have dedicated time that you just go, okay, cool. I'll deal with that later because I have time blocked for it on Friday.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's really funny. So while I was unpacking my office, I came across this, and it's still sitting on my desk because I want to frame it. So this is an exercise by Mike Bayer, I believe is his last name. Ed Milet interviewed him years ago. And he just said, draw your best self and draw your worst self and write down the characteristics of each of those people. And I was sitting there looking at this going, am I being this person or am I being this person right now? And I put that in my book as well, because I think it's such a powerful exercise to go through. But something that really stuck with me was the fact that I'm like not the person that I used to be as my bad self. Like I'm not lazy and I'm not, unmotivated. And I'm like looking at the things that I used to say about myself. And I'm like, I need to redo that. But just coming across that, like that's at least 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old.
That's really cool.
And just like being able to reflect on that. What's your new midline, right? Like what's your worst self and your best self? And when are you in the middle type thing? But I love that on the right-hand side, it's like revolutionary thinker and worthy and grateful and trustworthy and honest and loving and loyal. And I'm just like, yeah, I strive to be that version of myself way more than I'm sitting here going, am I angry or insecure or troubled, So I think when you're able to sit back and reflect on those moments, I literally have another thing right here sitting on my desk. I did this as an event in the beginning of December. So I did journals that are vision board journals, and just like going through, we want to buy a boat. We want to go to Haida Gwaii. I have a thing for rock hunting. That's just like what I want my life to look like. But if I can go in and try and help other people work through those emotions as well and go, okay, what does it look like to be my best self? What does this next version of myself look like? And we're recording this right at the beginning of January. And there's a lot of people who are like, new year, new me, right? And I'm like, you could be a new you today or tomorrow or the next day. You are a new you every single day.
Or right now.
Right? It's every minute of every day you're growing, you're developing, or you're not. And so I think that when we're going into these conversations with our teams, we have to be able to meet them where they're at, but also breathe life into them and tell them where we see them being through their skills and their personal development and stuff like that. Because I've seen, I have a guy on my team named Kyle, not my husband. My husband is also Kyle. But Kyle is just like developed into this incredible version of himself that is just, oh man, it's so cool to watch, because I met him years and years and years ago. And then all of a sudden he's like a full-time entrepreneur, able to spend time with his family, going home to see his family in Newfoundland. And, I'm like, wow, that's so cool. So I love to think that I had a part in that growth, And so I think that's the coolest part of being a leader, is just being able to watch these people in developing their own personal skills and seeing them develop as leaders and raise their own team, So maybe you could give us a little bit of advice on building a really strong team culture and just being a really good self-leader as well.
Yeah. Well, we've already kind of gotten into it a little bit throughout our conversation, just sprinkles here and there. But to dive deeper into it, you first have to lead yourself. And I think that it used to just be okay to lead professionally and lead in the office or lead in your job. I don't think that's okay anymore. I think that you have to lead personally and professionally. You have to be a whole leader, WHOLE, whole. Yeah. You have to be a whole leader, because if let's say you're morbidly obese and you're good at your job, but that value outside of your job doesn't line up, your people think that's okay too. Whereas if you're fit, your people are likely to follow that. If you're leading by example by doing 75 hard or whatever other program you might use to actually be fit, to actually lead by example, if you're leading in a healthy relationship, so people will watch everything you do as a leader. So if you're cheating on your spouse and you got a bunch of males in your office, they're going to think that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that could go both ways, right? So I shouldn't just blame it on the males, but that just was first to come to mind because I'm a male. But bottom line is everything you do as a leader is mimicked in some fashion to some degree. So you have to lead by example in all areas of your life. I think the days of just leading in the office and being good at your job as a leader is not enough anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't want that. They want to follow someone that's actually striving to be good in all areas of their life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's first, leading with yourself. The second thing of building that culture is finding people that are very coachable and that want to grow. That actually, so you're not going to, like, some people like, oh, I'm going to go find a bunch of mini-me's. I take a different spin on diversity because I want diversity in thought, not just diversity in gender or religion or skin color.
Yeah.
Like, I could go and find a gay dude that thinks just like me. I could go and find a black person or an Asian person or whatever that looks just like, or that thinks just like me. But that doesn't bring diversity of thought to the table, which actually creates new ideas, challenges your way of thinking, and makes sure that we get to the proper solution for whatever the problem is for the customer, for the team, for whatever it may be. So as you're thinking about, and all these DEI initiatives are pushed out there, remember it's about diversity in thought, not just what you look like or what genitalia you have or who you like to sleep with. Like, it's far more than that. So you want diversity in thought in the room, people that challenge you. You want people that are in the room that are smarter than you. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Like I already told you, I was a college dropout. It doesn't mean I'm not smart. It means college wasn't in school in general. For me, I'm 43, ADD. I'm highly ADD, and that wasn't as much of a thing back when I was in school. Mm-hmm. The teachers didn't know, doctors didn't know why my brain operated the way it did. I didn't find out till I was taking all the investment exams when I was 25. I was like, oh, this is a problem. I can't keep my nose in the books. And then I was diagnosed. But so you want people that are smart in the room, that are smarter than you, people that have the potential to be better than you. When you can recruit people that are truly better than you in certain areas, and then you see them grow to outproduce you, to do things better than you could ever do them, and it brings you joy, that means you're meant to be a leader. Mm-hmm. If you, like you were talking about earlier, like you're getting so much joy in seeing Kyle grow and build an amazing entrepreneurial practice. If you get insecure or jealous or envious, you should step your ass out of leadership real fast.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna hurt someone, if not yourself. You're gonna really harm some relationships. That person that gets insecure in those, you're meant to compete, not be a leader. Go be a great producer or salesperson. Get out of leadership. Mm-hmm. Now, I say that, and that's tough for them to recognize that. But if you can have some self-reflection in that and realize, hey, I get jealous, I get envious when someone is beating me. Perhaps I shouldn't be a leader. I should just go compete, because I want good salespeople in my organization. Okay, that doesn't mean they're going to be a good leader, but all organizations want good salespeople. Mm-hmm. So just some self-reflection there, and then continue to build the culture of collaboration. Tomorrow want to collaborate. They don't want to be told what to do. And what you'll also find is that when people are a part of the plan, they don't fight the plan.
Yeah.
Giving people a voice doesn't mean that we're going to agree with them. Doesn't mean you're going to get to a consensus all the time. But what you want, there's usually a decision maker in the room. There's usually a majority that you'll get to. But what you want is people to have a voice. And then what you have with loyalty when you walk out of that room, that you have each other's back. Once a decision's been made, even if you disagreed with it, you're still going along with the leadership team's decision. Mm-hmm. You're not out there going, oh, I told them we shouldn't have done this. This is a stupid idea. But then you're harming and you're becoming a cancer in the culture. Whatever the decision is made, if you didn't agree with it, but the leadership team came to consensus and everyone got their voices heard, you walk out that door as a unified front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then what you want to, and I could go on for this for days, but one last thing I'll give you is no triangular conversations. This is So gossip is way too prevalent in our society. In fact, I just read a study, I can't remember who it was by, but people waste 52 minutes per day gossiping
Yeah,
on average.
that's
So
great.
just think about that. That's an hour per day you could get back. And gossip, by the way, isn't always bad. It could just be water cooler talk. It could be just random stuff. But a lot of times gossip is about other people and it is bad. And so just think about that, just from the sheer aspect, we know all the reasons that gossip can be bad and talking behind each other's back can be bad. But for the sheer time aspect, the waste of time that it is, and we cannot, time's the most precious commodity we have. But what you don't want is triangular conversation. So if I come to you, excuse me, and say, hey, I got a problem with Bob, blah, blah, blah. Bob's being a real jerk. He actually sucks at his job, all the different things I could say. And you would say back to me, well, Josh, what did Bob have to say when you told him that? And I would say, well, I haven't told him that. I'm telling you this. Well, but what you're trying to create, well, like, I think you should really, if you have a problem with Bob, you really need to go talk to Bob about this. I would do it in a more political or nice manner than how you just came to me. But what you want to eliminate is the triangular conversations, the gossip type conversations, and actually lean in and create some healthy confrontation so that you can have healthy dialogue and move forward as a team.
Mm-hmm.
So as a leader, when someone comes to you and wants to bitch about someone else, your immediate question should be, well, what did they say when you told them this?
That's so good. Because there's so many people that are just like, and you're like, well, did you try and do anything about it? Or what was your approach in this conversation? And then they're like, oh, I didn't have that conversation. It's like, okay, well, how about you go read How to Win Friends and Influence People and frame a conversation and how you would like to approach that with that person. Because if you just are going to sit here and complain the whole time, well, what can you do to be positive? So one of my business mentors was like, how often are you talking about yourself in the day? And that was a huge reflective moment for me going into leadership conversations when I was just thinking about myself versus thinking about my team. So how many times am I talking about me or I, or using like self-reflective words versus talking about we, or going into conversations that how can this better the team versus what do I want, And I think that was a huge shift for myself when I was writing my book in particular, because I was doing rev.com where they transcribe it for you. And I was like, man, this is terrible. I was just listening to myself talk, and it was very negative, very all me. And I was sitting there going, what message am I actually trying to get through to these people? And I had to sit there and really reflect on that, because I knew there was a lesson behind what I was trying to say, but I wasn't able to get it through in the way that I wanted to without taking a step back and rereading it and going through my mindset again. And I just sat there and was like, I actually talk like that all the time. And how can I fix this? Right. So it goes back to, how am I approaching that conversation? We don't want to have triangular conversations where it's, you need to deal with this person's a pain in the ass. Well, what have you done about it? Or how are you going to approach that conversation? And I love when Andy Frisella talks about talking to his team and going in and going, well, what would you guys do? Because when they think, like you were saying, when they think it's their idea, they're going to be more sold on actually pursuing that idea. And I think right now, there's a lot of people who are stuck in their ways that might need a little bit of a kick in the butt when it comes to getting to the next level in their life and their business and their fitness and all of those things. But there's just something holding people back. And maybe you see this all the time. I'm not sure if there's like one or two things that you see people stumbling on, but how would you coach someone when it comes to, hey, my team is not producing the way that I want them to. We're struggling as a team culture. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, the first thing that came to mind when you said people that struggle on this, or what do they most struggle on? I think one of the big things is humility. A lot of younger leaders or newer leaders, they may not be younger, but some maybe newer, struggle with humility, thinking that they have to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And you do not have to be perfect. In fact, no one expects you to be perfect. And how you got that in your head is beyond most of us. So the biggest thing is, one of the more powerful group of words you can ever say is, I don't know, but I'm going to find out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get back to you within this time frame. Being able to say, I don't know, as an advisor, as a leader, as whatever, is powerful. Being able to say, I screwed up. I was wrong. Like, these are powerful things as a leader to foster in your culture. Humility and vulnerability. They want someone they can follow who's real, not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So where newer leaders struggle is being real and being authentic and being humble enough to say, I screwed up, or I was wrong, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm like writing this down. Being real, not perfect. And I don't think there's a definition of perfect out there. There's nobody out there that's absolutely perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. I listen to Ed Milet quite frequently because he's in business with me. And I love the way that he can pull people's really strong suits out of them and just go, here's what you're good at. This is what I like about what you're doing, but also able to give them coaching on what maybe they're faltering on. And I look at that, and he talks, like his last podcast on being wealthy in 2024, he was talking about how he learned how to do that through getting his water shut off and like making mistakes and not being perfect. And I think that when we can really reflect on the fact that we don't have to be perfect in order to be a good leader, in order to pursue greatness, there's just that little ounce of hope for ourselves that we can pursue this greatest version of ourselves and create this incredible life. Like you were talking about on your website, there was a couple little quotes on there that I was like, yeah, I like this guy. It's going to be great, because it's not about just going into every conversation and knowing exactly what to say. It's continuing to progress regardless of your emotions. It's taking a minute to mourn my loss, but at the same time, 3 weeks later, okay, here we go, right? It's, sorry guys, I missed a week of podcasting, but who cares, right? What's next? It's going into the conversation, giving yourself grace, as Paige Grant would say, and also relying on your team to help you develop this next version of yourself that you're going to grow into. But I love that you were talking about the time blocking as well, because you're not going to be able to progress if you don't take a minute to reflect. And I think knowing what perfect looks like is one thing, and striving to be perfect is great, but knowing that it's never going to be achievable to be 100% perfect is very humbling, because then you just reflect on that and be like, all right, I'm okay. I can go, I can go further if I give myself that time to reflect. And I know when I was first coming up in business, I was working 14-hour days, 15-hour days. And this last year I haven't. And it was like almost an identity piece that I'm like, man, I need to work more, like I need to get out there. I'm like super competitive, and I want to get to this place in my business where I'm not there yet. And I think that that is awesome that we can strive for that excellence. And like last year I finished the Live Hard program, even having multiple pregnancy losses. And I was like, what can I do to take my power back, like I said, or what can I do to be that best version of myself, regardless of my circumstances? Because I can't change what's happened, but I can change my reaction to these topics. I can change what it's going to be to my team when I'm not struggling mentally every single day, right? And I'm still leading by example. I'm drinking my water. I'm going for a walk in the morning. I'm reading my books and doing what I can to learn and grow and continue to develop even through the pain, right? So anyways, I could talk to you for hours, but I want you to have a minute to just kind of or give us a little bit of final thoughts that you might be thinking that people might need in these times?
Well, you mentioned something about Ed that he does really well, which is point out someone's giftedness.
Mm.
And I've heard him do that in person. I've heard him do it on the podcast. What's interesting is he doesn't know them all that well,
Yeah.
right? And oftentimes he's observing something, and he's like, you know what you're great at? And it's just that he's seen or heard them do it one time. But what he's doing, or what it reminded me of, is that he's reinforcing a behavior that may or may not be something that they do often, but they just did. And that's a really important trait as a leader. As you talked about earlier, how to build a culture. You want to be able to point out the behaviors that you really crave to see more often. So you want to reinforce them by saying, hey, great job. Really appreciated you doing X, right? And so they're like, oh, he really likes when you say when I do this, so I'm going to do that more often, right? So you got to make sure that you're pointing out and reinforcing behaviors that you want to see in that culture, right? So that, as you brought that up about Ed, I was like, that's a key point of creating the culture, being a good leader, but also creating the culture that you want to see is reinforcing the good behaviors and course correcting the bad ones.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, where can people get more access to you? I know you hire out coaching and speaking time and stuff like that. So if you're able to share your social media and where you want people to get more access to you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm very simple. So I'm at Josh Kosnick, Kosnick, on all social media platforms, joshkosnick.com. Find out more information about coaching and whatnot, some of our mastermind programs, and then coming down to see me in this house and the 80-acre retreat that we have if you want. But I just appreciate, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. And I'm also an open book. So if you have any questions or want to dive in deeper, feel free to DM or reach out through the website. Happy to pour into you and give you as much info and knowledge as I can to help you continue to achieve towards your vision and dreams.
Oh, that's incredible. Thank you so much for being on the show. It has been a big learning experience for me. I literally was jotting down notes as we went. And I'm like, I want to look into this and I need to focus on this. So much appreciated. Thank you so much for your knowledge and your time today. Until next time, guys, make sure that you share this podcast with someone who you know will get value out of it. We are a holistically grown podcast. We don't take money for advertising or anything like that. So make sure you share it with a friend and reach out to Josh if you have any further questions about leadership development or just getting better as a person. Listen to Spartan Leadership Podcast as well and give him some love. And until next time, that's Pursuit of Relentless signing out.